Wanderlusting Wives podcast, your podcast for escaping life's monotony, indulging in your wildest travel fantasies, and discovering the constant beauty of this ever-changing world. On today's episode, Abby Highland joins us to share about her experience traveling through France this summer.
Welcome to the Wanderlusting Wives podcast, and it's really weird for me to be saying that today because Allie usually says that, and Allie's not here today. She is enjoying the final days of her vacation, so it's just Regan today. I will be your only navigator, but we do have a very special guest with us, and I'm really, really excited to introduce her. Abby Highland, my coworker, is here today. Coworker and friend. Yeah. I need to keep adding that. Absolutely. So she had an amazing trip to France earlier this year, and I can't wait for you all to hear about it. But of course, before we get started, just a quick plug for our website, www.wanderlustingwives.com, where you can find more information about us, our travels, easy links to all of our episodes, and then you can get in contact with us there if you would like to be a guest on our Travel Tuesday episodes. We take stories big and small, like you may have gone to France like Abby, and we'd love to hear from you, or you may have just explored in your backyard, which is equally as cool. So get in touch with us. And I have to admit, I had to look up our social media handles before we started recording because, again, Allie usually says those on our episodes. So here we go. Forgive me if I miss anything. But so on Instagram, you can find us at Wanderlusting Wives. On Facebook, you can find us at Wanderlusting Wives Podcast. Twitter, go back and listen to another one of our episodes because you can find it there. And so get in contact with us anywhere there, and you can find us on any platform where you can find podcasts. Give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. That's been really helping us. So we'll just jump right into our conversation then. So welcome, Abby. I'm so glad to have you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be here.
Awesome. Yeah. So I know I've heard a little bit about your trip to France earlier this year, and it just sounded like, in a word, magical. So could you tell us, like, just to get started and get the conversation rolling, like, where did you go exactly? Because I know it was a little unique.
It was very unique. Yeah, the aim of my partner and I was to keep this trip super tight and sort of in like a smaller geographical area of France than, say, the normal trip where you'd like go to Paris and then you go to the south of France and you're bopping all around. So we did start in Paris. We flew in and out of Paris, but we decided to go the eastern route, actually. So we started in Alsace and visited a couple of different towns there. Alsace was absolutely gorgeous. In the middle part of our trip, we visited the Jura Mountains, which was absolutely mystical and beautiful. I could not recommend it more. It was just a really, really unique and special part of our trip. And then we finished off our trip in Burgundy, which was also absolutely gorgeous. It's just about an hour or 2 hours south of Paris via train. And we stayed in a couple of towns there. So we kept it pretty tight. We were away for 16 days, which felt really long. It felt like a really substantial trip. It could have been longer. Like every single town that we went to, we were like, we could live here. And then we would like move to the next town. We're like, we could probably live here too. Just scouting out the next spot. So yeah, we kept it pretty tight in that way. But with that, we did still stay in like a million Airbnbs. We stayed in like, I don't know, I think it was like 12 different places the entire time. God. Because we just wanted to like really dig into like one area, but like visiting different towns in that area and really getting a feel for everything. So we did it in sort of like a deep dive.
It's incredible because it's so unique. So how did you decide that those were going to be the places to go?
It's a great question. So France was sort of just like a toss-up. I won't go into the full story, but we were supposed to go there for another event that didn't end up happening, but we decided to keep our tickets anyways. And A lot of it was from my partner's work. So my partner works in the wine industry. So they are incredibly knowledgeable about all of these different regions across the entire globe. But obviously, France is big for wine. They've been in the wine industry for 10 years and had always tried wines from the Jura. People, aren't really like raving about Alsatian wines, but they have amazing wines. So a lot of it was wine based, though we weren't visiting vineyards all of the time. We did a lot of other activities, but a lot of it came from just my partner's knowledge of that area, especially the Jura. That is a place that people don't really visit often. Maybe if you're in the know, maybe if you're French, or maybe if you're from Switzerland or Germany, you might go to the Jura, but it's not a super common place for Americans to visit. So that was really special. Burgundy, on the other hand, is that's sort of like a hotspot area that people visit. So yeah, we just wanted to sort of keep it as concise as possible while visiting like new and unexpected places. Really didn't want to be around a bunch of tourists. So, I mean, obviously Paris was really full. France and all of Europe, I think, is having it's like a really big boom since the pandemic of tourism. Um, so a good amount of that is totally fine. It's fun, seeing what everyone's doing. But we wanted to make sure that we were getting off the beaten path, especially because we're both coming from New York City, where we live in
Yep.
Brooklyn. Like, we wanted to like get out into the woods. Like, we wanted to like go hiking. We wanted to be somewhere where no one would be speaking English, where we would have to, take whatever lick of French we have and use it as best as possible to get around and sort of like find that charm. So that's what we did.
Yeah. That's amazing. I think it's really cool that you did do some regions that not a lot of people do go to. So could you like describe what those might be? Because I think like we can think of Paris and be able to picture like, the Eiffel Tower. But when you talk about like Alsace, before you showed me pictures, I didn't really know what to expect. So how would you describe each of those different regions?
Yeah, they're all so unique, which was really fun. That was another part of our planning. So Alsace it's pretty touristy, but there's once again not a lot of American tourists. It's right on the border of Germany. So Alsatian people and the culture itself, for a long time was actually independent from France. And I forget what year, but they were sort of like brought in over different dukedoms over time. So they were unto themselves, their own culture. So Alsatian culture is very like, if you sort of picture like high Alps, like milkmaid vibes. That's kind of
I love
a
this.
one.
Yes, please.
So like tons of cheese, lots of like high mountain cheeses. There's half timber houses everywhere, which means you have that beautiful like wood lattice work that has sort of like packed with concrete, or I don't know what the concrete was made of. So the housing is super quaint. It's super like cute, like particularly cute. And it's meant to be that way. The towns are super walkable, like a lot of things in Europe, but tons of cobblestone and all of that. It's filled with flowers in the summertime. They're obsessed with Christmas. So apparently if you visit Alsace in the wintertime, you just find like beautiful lights and like it's incredibly decorated and it's like a place to go for Christmas time.
Mm.
Very adorable, but it does both seasons so well. So the summertime, you just like you're walking over these like alleyways and over bridges, and they're just like covered in like floral arrangements. It's so cute. So yeah, that's Alsace. The countryside of Alsace is filled with sunflowers, as is a lot of France, and corn. They grow lots of corn, government subsidized corn, which is very interesting. Um, and it's just like rolling hills. It's a good mix of like hot and cool. It's not too dry. My partner could tell you like all about the soil types that are there, but lots of like limestone and clay soils. And then in the Jura, you just like switch completely. You're like, it's more like going into like the Appalachian Mountains or like the Northwest and the Pacific Northwest in the US. It's just like moist and misty. We were lucky, actually. I don't know how I'm saying this, but we were lucky it rained a lot of the time that we were in the Jura. So it was just like, it really felt like you were just in, I don't know, like Lord of the Rings or something. It's just like gorgeous. Lots of really cool rock formations. And the towns are way smaller. So lots of little towns that sort of dot the mountains as you drive southeast. So that was gorgeous. The Jura is also very medieval, so you're gonna find like really old stuff there. Lots of like beautiful stone that has like little tiny little plants growing out of the cracks between the stones, and just some ruins. But people live there. People are also inhabiting these places, and their families have inhabited them for a really long time, which is something really interesting about France in general, especially when you're visiting sort of these wine regions and learning about the histories of, maybe there was like an abbey that used to like run this winery in like the 1500s, and then all their vines got wiped out, and then they got restarted in the 1800s, which is sort of like the historical trajectory of wine in France. And so they just have this long history. And then in Burgundy, it's more feels more like Southern California, kind of like LA. It's like rolling hills, but it's hotter. It's not near water, so you don't have that beach aspect like in California, but a bit hotter, rolling hills, really beautiful vines, like covered in vineyards. And it's like Burgundy wines are one of the like they're the top notch. They're kind of expensive, like for what reason I don't know, but they're a destination wine spot. If you can get like a good Burgundy, you're probably going to spend like a lot of money on it. But still, like they're very prideful of their wine, and that's actually where we found the most American tourists. We heard the most English there, but also sunflowers everywhere. There are sunflowers.
Wine and sunflowers. I'm trying to think of better combos than that. That's
Yeah, just
amazing.
like take a day walk in a vineyard and then
Yeah.
looking at some sunflowers, and it's lovely.
Going to
Yeah.
how many bird sanctuaries?
That's
I
okay,
like
you're gonna ask
actually love this. I was telling a
I
couple of people, I was like, I have a friend who went to bird sanctuaries in France, and I want to be more like that.
I think we went to 3 in total. I think there was like 1 for each region, which is so fun.
That's awesome.
I know. I was, yeah, the Parc de École was in Alsace, so that's like really close to Ribeauvillé, which is like on the way to Colmar from Strasbourg, those were the towns that we visited there. And the Parc de École is like white stork restoration rehabilitation center. So basically, they've been trying to rehabilitate the stork population. I think it's since like the 1970s, maybe. So like there used to be all these white storks, and if you look at the old iconography, old in whether it's in the cathedrals or art museums, like you'll see this white stork as like the symbol of Alsace.
Hmm.
But they had gone into decline because humans were not doing nice things to the area, so they started decreasing. But then there was this effort to increase the populations, and so we went to a bird rehabilitation center for storks. They also had non-storks. They had birds of prey. It was like sort of, you can like walk through and sort of like look at their like open habitat.
Hmm.
So not a lot of it is like caged in. It's all open. The birds get to do what they want. That's especially important for like the storks will like leave and go create a storkdom somewhere else.
A storkdom.
Is the idea. They nest like super high up in the tree, in trees or on buildings. You'll find their like huge nests, like 5 feet in diameter. You'll find them on like the tops of churches or like in like steeples.
Dang.
So they nest, and they are actually mute birds. So they communicate by clapping their bills together. So like I guess, like the mute swan, also another white bird. I guess large white
Okay,
birds
yeah.
tend to be mute. And then there was like this sort of like, what do you call it? You could get up into the trees, like a tree walk. and you could like look at the stork nests like from their level, and there's just like these like ridiculously silly looking giant stork babies. They're like already like 3 feet tall, but they like don't fly yet. Like they're learning how to have wings. So that was
That's so cute.
absolutely amazing. And then in the Jura we went to, it's kind of all fits for like each region's like bird area was very fitting to like what each place was. In the Jura we went to mostly birds of prey. So this was sort of more like large enclosures where they were rehabilitating birds that had either been brought there and they shouldn't have been brought there, or maybe they were hurt. And there we saw, all different kinds of eagles and so many different types of hawks and kestrels. Just lots of owls. Oh my God, the owls were usually in that setting.
Owls?
Oh, it was so cool.
Oh my
Yeah, we
gosh.
like communed with an owl. We were like making like weird alien noises, and the owl was just looking at us, and we're like, I think we're talking to it.
Life goals. Oh my God.
I can't remember exactly where that was in the Jura. I think it was somewhere near Baume-le-Monsieur. So Baume-le-Monsieur is an old town that is situated between two cliffs, like two cliff bodies, and it's a little medieval town, like in the bottom of these two cliff areas. So it's super picturesque, so pretty. There's an abbey there that you can visit. Everything's medieval. There's like a stream that just like goes through the middle of it. I stuck my feet in the stream. But after that, we drove up the cliff and just literally just saw a sign that was like bird sanctuary this way. We're like, okay, let's go. It was awesome. And then the third one was something more of like a wildlife park. It was more like you like hike and there's like protected species there, but it wasn't as like in your face or like these are these amazing species. Yeah, it was awesome. That was definitely a priority.
It's just really cool. I love I've talked to a lot of people where it's like you do the typical things. So I just love that you did some things that were off the beaten path. And I'm actually wondering how much of it was planned in advance versus like, oh, you see the sign for the bird sanctuary. Oh, let's go there or whatever. So what would you say in terms of your planning?
And now a quick word from our sponsor. Newsly is an all-in-one audio super app for iOS and Android. It picks up the most trending articles on the web on topics you choose at any given moment and reads them to you in a natural human voice. The entire web becomes listenable for the first time, all in one place. Browse articles from topics you choose and start playing. Stop scrolling and start listening. You can follow any topic as specific as you like, from sports, tech, business, science, Bitcoin, or even the Kardashians. It will find you the latest articles and read them to you aloud. And the best part, they have podcasts. Explore trending podcasts from over 80 countries. You can even find us there. I started using it as my default podcast app. They even have a digital radio. Download and use Newsly for free now at www.newsly.me or from the link in the description, and use promo code WIVES. That's WIVES. And you can get a 1-month free premium subscription. You can find all this information in our description from this episode. And now back to our episode.
It's a great question because I was so busy, as you know, because we work together. We were really busy. So busy this year, like leading up to this time that I got to go travel. Yeah, we didn't really plan much at all. We like booked our Airbnbs or our hotels or our chateaus. We can talk about that too. We stayed at a chateau one night. And so we knew exactly what our trajectory would be. But I didn't have time to like really research a lot of the places. So I think it was when we were like on the way to Alsace on the train that I was researching it. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's a white stork nature center. And then you learn all about the history and it like everything, whether it's like wine or like birding, like it all ends up tying in with the history. So like we learned so much about like the transferring of like different kingdoms and little areas of this, in Alsace, of like how it like went from like duke to duke and how they like grew their kingdom because of wine or because of like the bird efforts, so you end up like learning
from here.
so
That's just like incredible.
Yes. Ancient history,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so special. Yeah, so a lot of it
Yeah.
was sort of on the fly, which made it fun too because in the moment you had to be like, "Okay, what do we wanna learn about today?" Like, "Do you wanna go to the archaeology museum or the art museum?" Um, and now I just am like, always gonna be connected to these places and super interested in learning about them because I had a taste of it, so yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like sometimes a lack of planning really makes you be more present. Like for some people I know it doesn't work. Like I need to have a certain amount of planning in order to not like be stressed over like spending 5 hours figuring out what to do and then you've wasted time or something. Like that's me, but it's like I do feel like a good balance of planning and not planning. It really does make you kind of stop and smell the roses and just like take advantage of the beauty that's in front of you too and like the options that are all around you. You're in a new space, like
Right.
everything is new. So that's
Yeah.
really awesome. You did mention that you took the train to Alsace. How did you get around to the rest of the places?
So we took train like 50% of the time and we drove a rental car probably like 50% of the time. So all through Alsace we took trains and then we picked up a rental car because going to the Jura, it's super mountainous. You want to be able to like stop. Like on the way to the Jura, we stopped at like a cave that we ended up having like an hour and a half walking tour, like for almost a mile underground in this like huge cave.
Oh
It
my
was so
god.
cool. That's where I saw the European bee eater was at that area, not in the cave, obviously, but which is a kind of bird. The most exciting bird that I saw on the
Oh my
trip.
gosh.
So yeah, we took a car there just because we knew we wanted the freedom of it. And then we drove a little bit in Burgundy, but by the time we got to Dijon, we dropped the car off and then just did trains because the public transportation is amazing there. So when we were staying in Dijon, we visited Beaune, which is like a 20-minute train ride from Dijon, just farther south. And you can stop in all these other tiny towns too via the train. Going from Paris to Strasbourg was like 2 hours on the train, and then you can just, like, look out the window and read or whatever, like, their food options in the train stations are amazing, like, delicious.
Okay, I
Um
definitely want to talk about food.
Right?
Like I want to make sure we talk about food because A is dinner time for me and I'm super
Yes.
hungry, but also the pictures you showed, I just like we need to talk about this
Oh
food.
god, the food was so good. I ate so much cheese, I can't believe I didn't just turn into a piece of Comté.
Wouldn't
Honestly.
that wouldn't be too bad, would it?
No, I'd be okay with that existence. That would be completely fine with me. Yeah, I mean, just like the routine of being like, "All right, today we're gonna go to a farmer's market, we're gonna buy a baguette, we're gonna get some, like, fresh radishes, and we're gonna get some cheese, and then that's gonna be what we eat during the day." Like, it
It
saves
sounds
me so
amazing.
many times from hunger. Like, just have that on you at all times. Get a good hard cheese, like a Comté that will just, like, last you throughout the day, you don't have to refrigerate it, and you'll be good. You won't get hangry at all because you'll just be eating cheese all day.
I need that in my life so
Yeah.
badly. And like also you were telling us something about how like everything would close in the afternoon and then what were your options?
Yes. So this was the funniest thing that I just like I did first of all, we didn't realize that going to France like on Sundays and Mondays and maybe also Tuesdays, like unless you're in Paris or a bigger city, things will be closed. Like you it's a good thing to know because I didn't think about it at all. And luckily we were saved multiple times by cheese vending machines. So even though the like cheese shop would be closed when you're like driving through the mountains in like Alsace or the Jura, they would have a little vending machine by the cheese shop where you could go and pay like whatever, like couple of euros, like maybe like 4 euros for like a giant piece of Comté cheese. Or even they had like soft cheeses too. There was like a brie cheese or like a brie
Mm.
type of cheese. I don't know, all the softer cheeses. Just in this vending machine, just made from the place that you're standing right there. You're like at the cheesemaker spot, but because it's Sunday, they've closed their doors, but you still get to buy their cheese. It was like mind blowing. So
I'm
cool.
only a little salty still that you didn't bring one back for us, but you know what? I'll get over it someday, maybe. We'll see.
Oh, I
That
should
is
have.
the best invention. Like, and how, like, honestly mindful that is. It's
Yes.
so mindful of the
Very
community.
mindful.
That's, yeah,
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
awesome.
There were also like egg vending machines where you could like buy like a carton of like 6 eggs. I saw like sandwich vending machines. And I think in the egg ones it was like egg and milk also. So
Mm,
yeah, just absolutely amazing. So oh, and
yeah.
oh, I forgot there was also a baguette vending machine.
No.
Yes.
What?
Yes.
I didn't think I could love something more than a cheese vending machine, and then you just said that, and it's blowing my mind.
And I learned something. I mean, obviously, I experienced it when I was there, but I learned something coming back that the price of a baguette and the price of a croissant in France are regulated. And I haven't actually gone to research it yet, but I've talked to multiple people who know about this. But like the price is like set at like €1.50 for a plain baguette or a plain croissant.
Really?
Yes. So like you can't charge more than that because it's considered like a basic food that people deserve to have. Isn't
Yes. I
that so
love that.
amazing? So,
That,
yes,
like, warms my
consider that.
heart.
Yeah, it's
That's
absolutely
amazing.
mhm.
Oh,
I
that's
know,
awesome.
I know. There's so many little things that we're just like, "Why am I not in Europe?" Just
Yeah, honestly.
yeah,
Oh my goodness. You're gonna keep bees and work at the Stork Rehabilitation Center in France someday. I can feel that for
honestly,
you.
I would die so happy if that was my life. That'd be amazing.
Well, I'm here for it, and I will be moral support in making it happen. And I will eat from the cheese vending machine.
Yes.
Um, yeah. So okay. So cheese vending machine. What other amazing foods did you eat? Because I'm sure there were several.
Oh, there were several. And to be honest, so I have been vegetarian for the most part since I was 9 years old. I'm 30 now. So I've been vegetarian for 21 years, which is a long time. And I ate some meat while I was on this trip because I just had to try some things that, it's just you're not gonna get it elsewhere. So I had some duck confit for the first time. That was absolutely delicious. I ate like a lot of snails, like maybe like an embarrassing number of snails.
If you
Um,
had to guess.
oh God, if I had to guess, I probably ended up eating like 45 snails the entire time. Cause like you get them, it's sort of like ordering mussels. So it's like, do you want
Mm.
like 6 or do you want 12? So you like order like a
Mhm.
plate of them, or do you want like 24? Um, And so you order a plate of them and you share them as like an appetizer and they just like pop right out. And every region has their own type of sauce that they put on top of them. So we have
Mm.
like so many different types of sauces. All of them tend to be pretty herby and pretty buttery. So they taste like little like portobello mushroom caps, like just like broiled in like a butter sauce. They're so good. I
Mm.
surprised myself entirely.
You had
Delicious.
me at butter sauce.
Delicious. Yeah, just put butter on anything. It'll be good.
Yes.
Yeah, why not? So the snails were good. Had some like sauerkraut dish with they call it sauerkraut with trois poissons, so 3 different types of fish. That was delicious, like river trout and a salmon something. Um, uh, choucroute was really fun. I think choucroute was the sauerkraut dish. Yes. Morels. There's like a morel soup that was pretty common in the Jura. So morels are like a type of like
Hmm.
woodland mushroom. So it's this like super woody, rich soup that you have with like a piece of like toast that's been like soaked in the soup. So good.
Mm.
Cheese and potatoes, like mainstay everywhere. Cheese and potatoes, lots of different types of cheeses with potatoes. There's a bibelkas is like uh this like sour cream cheese mixture that you have that's like kind of herbed and you
Mm.
eat that with like boiled or fried potatoes.
Making me
Ugh,
so hungry right
it's
now.
so good.
Like, can I quickly get to
So good.
France in the next hour somehow?
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll start calling the airlines,
Oh
make
my God,
sure.
that's amazing. We always have to talk about food on this podcast
Yeah.
because, well,
Absolutely.
why not? We travel with our
Yes.
stomachs here on the Wanderlusting Wives podcast. So Perfect. Well, then you're in a good
Me
place.
too. Me too. Absolutely.
Yeah, so we're just about to wrap up here. I mean, I feel like we could keep talking about this for hours because it's just like it sounds amazing. But something that I really want to hear your perspective on, like traveling internationally, you get to have so many experiences that you just can't have in the United States. So how did you find that life in France was different from what a typical life might look like in the United States, or like ideals or how society works, anything like that?
Oh, I have so much to talk about when it comes to that. Which we can just like continue to talk about,
Yes. Please.
but because there's so much, and I've been thinking about it a lot since coming back to the US. But I think the main thing that a lot of people will tell you is traveling to France and probably other areas in Europe as well, is that the pace of things slows down so much and puts into perspective how horrible the grind culture of the United States is.
Mm,
That just does not exist elsewhere, that it's not permissible to have this sort of like, gotta go, gotta get out, gotta, you only have your table for an hour when you're eating. Like, it's kind of like a culture shock when you're in France. You have to like ask them for the bill, which we would think is rude, right? But
mm,
like there, when you're done after however long you've been there, maybe it's been like 3 hours would probably be a normal time to eat dinner within. Instead of you waiting for the waiter or waitress or the server to come and give you the bill, you have to ask them because they're never going to assume that you're done, because that would be rude. So that
wow.
was huge, huge change, and very liberating. You're like, "Oh, I get to, like, have more autonomy and, like, how I spend my time, how I take my time." And you see them doing that also, like, lots of places will close from, like, 12 to 2, and people will go have lunch and, like, spend time with their friends on a work day
Mm,
in the middle of the day. Like, we don't know what that's like. We're eating, lunch at our desks for 20 minutes. And once again, that's just like not permissible there. It's not going to happen because it's it's just, they savor in like the ability to like connect and just go a little more slowly. So that's huge. And then obviously just like the I don't know, the societal norms are very different, more uh, they're like the French are so beautiful, but like their beauty routines aren't like so hyper focused and social media driven
mm,
as like people in the United States. It's much more like
mm.
natural. Everything just feels a lot more natural. It changes the way that your nervous system is experiencing life. And you're like, "Oh wow, okay. I need to just slow down and enjoy." And like you were saying earlier, like just be present. Be present here. Eat your food, enjoy your food. Have like be in company with people, talk, and yeah, just get out of the grind culture. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to bring it back. I remember coming back to a restaurant, the first or maybe second week after returning. Went to a restaurant and it was like, snap, snap, snap,
Mm,
gotta go. Like, can't be here for more than an hour and a half. The table's time limited. And I was just like, oh, I don't like this at all. I feel so
yeah.
rushed. Like, yeah.
So what you're saying is that we need to integrate trips to France into our life just
Yes.
generally, like maybe 1 month out of the year. If
Yeah.
we can't move to France or somewhere else. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
I think it's
that's
so
really
important.
beautiful.
You have to just like recalibrate yourself, right? To be like, oh, this isn't the only way. Like grind culture is not the only way we can live differently. And I think that's so important.
Yeah.
So honestly, yes, like it just even traveling just as a reminder to be like, oh, I like this, or I have this normally, but I would like it to feel like this.
Yeah.
It's really important. Otherwise, we just stay in our own little bubble, believing that everything's quote unquote normal, when there's so many different ways to live.
That's beautiful. And
Yeah.
I know that you have like a really intentional mindset when it comes to things like that, and it just like it's really beautiful to hear this side of that perspective and that mindset of like having that kind of both sides of the coin kind of view of it. So Thank you for sharing about your trip and all of your explorations and adventures. I know our listeners are going to love this. So, yeah, thank you, Abby. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so fun to revisit. I started keeping a travel log, like a diary sort of, because my mom does it whenever
Oh, yeah.
travels, and she's just like, I really encourage it. So I was reading over it today and in preparation for this to just sort of remember some of the little things that happened. And it's just so exciting to be able to talk about it. So thank you so much.
Yeah. We'll have to have you back again for your next trip to France.
Sounds
It's
good.
going to happen. All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Thanks for tuning in to the Wanderlusting Lives podcast. Come escape with us again every other Tuesday for Travel Tuesdays and every other Wednesday for Wildcard Wednesdays.
Don't forget to give us a subscribe and a follow on all of our social media and wherever you listen to your podcasts. And until next time, wander on.